Those are words from a famous Unitarian named Theodore Parker. So, one of the required classes in seminary that we had to take was called church history, right? We had to take 2 semesters of it. And it was taught by this very nice professor who liked to joke around a fair bit. Now, I remember in our second semester we were looking at the 19th century. And if you were aware, the 19th century, particularly here in the US, when we look at church history, it's a very unique time. It's a time of a lot of experimentation, right? It's the opening up of the United States, right? They bought the big middle part, so everybody's going land grabbing everywhere. It's all this unprecedented freedom, and in particular, there's a great deal of religious freedom going on. And that meant that there was also a lot of experimentation at the time. So there was lots of new religions popping up. For example, the Shakers, if you remember them. There are all sorts of other little sects that you probably never even heard of now that popped up here and there. There was even, they tried to do a Unitarian sort of communal farm. It was called Brooks Farm. They tried that in the 19th century as well. They were all just trying different ways of doing church. And it's the time of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, right? This is when the Mormons came into being, when they first came into being as a church. Now, in my seminary, I knew that there was some prejudice toward the Mormons. And while I had tried to speak up about it before, I'd always been kind of shut down. It was a fairly Christian seminary. I'm going to say traditional Christian. But I remember my professor, as she was wrapping up this class, she gets to the 19th century and she has the book open, the big textbook that we were all reading together open. And she does this at the very end. She closes it, slams it shut, and she goes, "And there's the crazies." Now everyone laughed but me. I lost it. It takes a lot to get me mad, but I'd had it. How dare you? You don't get to call them that. These are people who are trying to build a connection to the holy. It's what each of us are trying to do. You may or may not agree with the outcome, but you do not get to call them crazy. I said, there's Mormons here in this seminary. They're trying to go on to be chaplains in the army. These are good people looking to help others. How can we call them crazy? Well, I'll tell you, the professor issued an immediate apology. Everyone around me apologized. As a matter of fact, she sent out an email to the entire school apologizing. I think she apologized to me 3 or 4 times. I think she was afraid of losing her job. I had no idea. I wasn't going to go to the dean and try to get her fired or anything like that. But name calling is completely inappropriate. And it's something that we often resort to when we disagree with another person, right? When we disagree with how they think about their beliefs. Frederick David, he's a 16th century Unitarian, 16th century, a long time ago. He helped formulate the Edict of Torda, which is the first law of religious tolerance ever. And he was famous for saying this: "We need not think alike to love alike. We need not think alike to love alike." In his country, this edict, it allowed people of all different faiths to live together. We need not think alike to love alike. Is that really true? You certainly wouldn't know it by today's political and religious climate, would you? In other words, can I love someone who thinks so differently from me? Can we do that? I keep hearing stories of families divided and friends lost. I have friends who said, yeah, I've been on Facebook friended by people because they're on the other side of this political divide. It's become a chasm, really. Now this church, it's really proud of its progressive stance on many social issues, and I'm really proud of it too. But it may surprise you to know that there are a number of conservatives right here, right now. People who are going to vote the opposite of what many of you, the majority of you, may be thinking. And oh yes, they may be sitting right next to you. But I'm here to tell you that they're afraid to come out about it. They don't dare for fear of being called a crazy, of losing your love and respect. Is that the church that we want to be? Is that the church that says we affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person, our first principle? Is that the church that says we accept one another and encourage spiritual growth? Do you have to think alike here to be loved alike here? Lee Barker is the president of one of our seminaries, and he said, anybody can create community with people who think just like they do. The true test of community rests in the ability to create it with people who disagree with you. Ooh, that's so tough. It's so tough when you disagree strongly with someone to not lose your cool, disagree, but why? Why do you think that way? Maybe you do want to call it because it's so beyond your conception. We start calling people things like liars or a basket of deplorables or whatever it is we start name calling. But let me ask you this. Have you ever convinced someone else to change their mind by calling them names? Anybody? Yelling at them? No. I'm just curious. I mean, I've never seen it actually happen. I want you to know that, I want you to meet the man who taught me about how to be kind and considerate to those I disagree with. I found his picture up on LinkedIn. This is Don Harris. He is the director of environmental health and safety at AT&T, and he was my boss when I worked there, just before I went into seminary. I used to tease Don, actually, that he was one of the whitest guys I'd ever met. And I don't mean that pejoratively, it's just that, you know, he had the palest skin. I think he's now living in Dallas, and I think that's a tan for Don. But he was a very white skin, but he also, I mean, he was a suburban, he was he had a wife and 2 kids, he lived in the suburb and everything like that, and he was middle class, college educated, all that sort of thing, and he was a very devout Mormon. And I'm gonna tell you, I love this man. He's one of the kindest people you will ever meet. But more than that, he was great at listening and being respectful. Now, I noticed this right away in the way that he treated me just as an employee. I came into the job expected to handle 300 sites in the environmental compliance for it. And it turned out, after I did an audit, that we were out of compliance by about 6,000 sites. And I kept going into his office and saying, Don, I can't keep us in compliance. I just can't do it. And he found me all the resources. He listened to what I had to say, listened to my ideas. And I started to build a lot of trust with him. It also became very early on that Don and I were on opposite sides of the political spectrum. And let's just say our faith traditions are very, very, very different. But his kindness, his openness, his thoughtfulness led me to trust him and encouraged me to ask him questions about his faith, the Church of Latter-day Saints, the Mormons. And questions that I might not have the courage to ask if I thought he was going to proselytize to me or demean my own views. I remember one time I went to him asking, I said, so how do Mormons celebrate Easter? Because, you know, in the Mormon tradition, Jesus then rose and came over to the United States. So I didn't understand how they might do that. So I remember he didn't jump in with this quick explanation. Oh, well, let me tell you. He was like, sat there and thought, well, that's a really good question. He was trying to find a way for a non-Mormon to understand. And I remember it was so thoughtful of him. And then he would ask me, so well then, how do Unitarian Universalists celebrate Easter since most of you all don't believe in the resurrection? That made me really think hard on the subject. And I can't tell you how much I loved these conversations, whether it was religious or it was political, because there wasn't this major agenda. We weren't trying to change each other's minds, we were trying to understand one another. I'm sure both of us would have been thrilled if we changed the other's mind, but we're also okay that they didn't. There was no, how could you believe that? There was no, are you stupid, are you crazy? We need not think alike to love and respect one another. And I remember at one point, as part of a seminary experiment that I was asked to do, I asked if I could attend his church, and he was thrilled. Oh, absolutely, come with me on Sunday. And I remember going, I met him and his family there, and it was a lovely service. It was pretty traditional in the hymns. The day that I was there, it just happened that the ward, which is what they call the larger churches, was honoring young women in their church. It was actually kind of cool to hear how these young women held on to their faith amid a lot of social pressures to drink, to have sex, or to dress provocatively. And afterwards, Don asked me how I liked the service. And I said, that I'd been really impressed by the young women. But then I said, but Don, I noticed that it was only the men who were act as priests. And it makes me sad that I can never be a priest in your tradition, nor any of those young women. And Don he looked thoughtful and a little sad, and he said, but you could be the president of the Relief Society, which, to be fair, is a very respected position in the Mormon church. I said, Don, but God is calling me to ministry, and I couldn't do that here. I remember he just nodded. Again, he looked a little sad, but he accepted it. What he didn't do was try to talk me out of it. What he didn't say was, well, maybe your calling's wrong. He didn't say, but you'll go to hell. He just accepted it, even though he might not have fully agreed or understood. And it was the same with me. I'll never agree with much of the theology of the Mormon church, but I respect Don, and I respect him in part because of his faith to his religion. I've always believed that Unitarian Universalism could change the world, because sitting here you have a group of people sitting worshiping together who all think very differently about issues of ultimate concern. And look at the political climate in our country right now. How are you? I thought it was polarized before the election, but it's actually gotten worse. The candidates on each side insulting one another, and it seems to be escalating. Now you can blame one side more than the other, that's cool. But rather than looking to the candidates for the models of how we should be during the campaign, can we look elsewhere? And shouldn't church be that place where we can bring all of ourselves, no matter our politics or our faith? Shouldn't church be that place where we can treat one another with respect and kindness, even if we don't find it always out there in the world? Because if we can't respect and listen to one another here, if we're too afraid to come out about who we are politically or religiously, we're not going to change anything. And that chasm is going to grow wider and wider. When I was a budding Unitarian Universalist, I spoke to this very wise Unitarian Universalist who'd been a UU for a long time. And she said, people go into this faith thinking they can just believe whatever they want. But you know what? Our faith is deeper than that. And I encourage you to go deeper. I've been sitting with that for a long time, for years, decades now. What does it mean to go deeply into this faith? And I want to challenge you to go deeply into this faith, to go beyond just thinking about the progressive ideals of liberal religion, but living the ideals of liberal religion. That we need not think alike to love alike. So here's what I've learned about what it means to go deeply. First, it means cultivating at least a tolerance, if not an appreciation, for words that are deeply meaningful for others. Words like God or reason. Words like secular or spiritual. I think it means cultivating a curiosity for that which is different, to ask questions and develop trust. It means going outside of your comfort zone. I think it means working for what you believe in, standing in your own truth, working for justice while respecting the dignity and worth of others who stand in theirs. I think it means having faith that doubt is okay, that questions are healthy and answers are not always easy. I think it means following where love leads, even when it's not always convenient or easy. Now, you may have your own ideas about what it means to go deeply into this faith. It isn't limited to these. These are mine. This is what I've come up with over the years. I hope I'll add to them because I want to go even deeper still. Because I don't know about you, but I am so tired of all the shouting and the yelling, the name calling that's out there. And I get it that sometimes we do need to speak up and say, hey, no, you don't get to do the name calling. We do need to speak up. But I also think we've gotten used to shouting and yelling. We've forgotten how to listen. Our country is in so much pain right now. It's deeply in pain. And it isn't getting better with all the name calling. When someone's experiencing pain, I can tell you as a minister, you don't add to it. You listen. You let it be expressed. And only then can you really get to healing. And it's what our world needs right now. Our world needs this faith. It needs all faiths that are dedicated to healing, if we can live it. And we've got to be the ones who are modeling it. Don't look to the leaders to show us how to be in this world. It's up to us. You know, we're kind of in the midst of a great experiment, we Unitarian Universalists, right? There's no other church that does what we do, where people of all different theologies sitting together. It's a great experiment. Can people who think differently live, worship, and love together in community? Can we do this? Will it work? Can it work? Can we love alike even if we don't think alike? And the answer is going to be up to all of us. It's going to be up to you. It's going to be up to me. But wouldn't you like to change the world? Blessed be and amen. Let us build a new way.